come in.
Do you want to send me a link so I can share it to my Facebook?
Hang on a second. You can, it's live on, what I would do is go to my page. It's public. Just go to my page, Todd Medina. It's live now, so you can share now from there. I'd share from there because if they go into that one, the comments will be easier to be seen.
All right, we might get some feedback. I'm going to open this up and close whatever program it is really quick, just in case.
Hello. No, there's not any.
All right, so what's your website?
Well, it's Facebook. Just go to the Facebook page.
Okay.
Because the website won't have a replay. So if you go to the Facebook page, Todd Medina, TODD-MEDINA, you should see me. There should be a picture of Morgan and I on my profile.
Okay.
You see it?
I see. Is that your private page or your?
No, it's not private. Well, I mean, it's public. It's the primary page. All right, what I could do, hang on. Let me just let me do it this way. I'll send it to Morgan to send to you. But you should be able to just search me. Huh?
I found it. I'm going to share it to my.
Yeah, do the sharing. I see you. I see the friend request. Hang on. Do the sharing, and while you're doing the sharing, since it's our first show of the day and of the week, hang on. Then I'm going to go ahead and play an intro and allow people time to come in.
Okay.
So we'll be right back. Minute 19 seconds. What's happening, everybody? We got Daniel John in the house, and typical SOULOGY style, we're going to get on with this conversation. I'm only half a coffee through for the first part of the week. I was up until 6:30 this morning doing a 6-hour radio show, testing stuff on the audience. Anyway, so I can't talk very good, but I did just go to Daniel's page because I went over there to confirm a friend request. First of all, let me say you've got an absolutely beautiful family. These three children can stand on their own, I can tell already. You got your hands full. Your byline says God first, Jesus follower, medium, author, and then you're signing Peter 4:8-11, Proverbs 3:5-6:1, and Corinthians 12:4-11. So this should be interesting. This should really be interesting. I've met a couple of 4 or 5 people, and I'm not being presumptuous, that are in the awakening, enlightened circles, whatever you want to call it, light worker circles, that have a strong Christian basis or a strong Jesus basis. And I think that's one of the cool things about what we're all experiencing together is that there are so many different shades of oneness, right? Like everybody has a unique piece of the puzzle. Some people talk about soul signatures. So that's one thing that comes to mind before we jump into this. And the other one is myself, I still can't talk. like many others that I've talked to, in the beginning of their reawakening, had certain faces of the universe speaking to them that they could relate to at that time. So mine would be, as an example, going back like 9.5 years. When it started for me, it was six biblical prophets. It was Jesus, Magdalene, six biblical prophets, and Archangel Michael. And as time went on, that changed. That communication that I was having with them, or what I process is I was here and they were there kind of thing, external. They became more of an embodied part of me. So I still look at these ascendeds as a huge part of my composition, and I would have to say Jesus or the cosmic Christ. Since I was a little kid, it's just taken on different meanings. So I'm really interested in jumping into how this has all evolved for you, where you stand with it. But before we do that, let me just say thank you for coming on, and congratulations on your beautiful family. I'm so glad your kids look like your wife, not you. I'm kidding.
Thank God.
And she's beautiful too. You're beautiful. But did you have a by contemporary terms, a typical reawakening? Did you have a period where the universe just got in your face, or things got really tough, or whatever, or was yours more of a gradual, steady evolution throughout your life?
Both. And thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate the comments, and I like the humor too. It was both, because in my book I talk about when I was 37, it was like kind of sudden in some ways, but it's still evolving. I mean, because it'll be almost 4 years since I had my first reading and when I started figuring out some things about what this life's about. So it kind of happened during a period of 3 or 4 months where it was actually quite difficult. I had to quit gambling. It's a lot of information, but where I had my first reading, which I didn't even believe in this kind of stuff. And then it'll be 4 years next month where I had my first experience with spirit communication. And I didn't.
4 years.
Yeah, it'll be 4 years in January. I was a huge skeptic about all this stuff, being raised Catholic and sixth grade that you're not supposed to communicate with spirit, right?
Yeah.
So it took a lot of research, a lot of trust, a lot of re-examining my faith. And so it was sudden in some ways, but long in others.
Wow, that's trippy. So, one of the things that interests me too is that a lot of people talk about 2012, give or take a year. Obviously we've had people on here like Morgan that have been doing this since 2000 or 1990. Some go back to the 60s. We had a couple of people go back to the 60s, but for most people it's 2012, give or take. But what I've noticed is, especially this year, several people like yourself who are deeply indoctrinated and integrated into this lifestyle now, that this atypical pattern or whatever in their daily life has become accepted and is a huge part and guides their life, like you. But they didn't happen around 2012. It happened it sounds like in your case it was 2016, 2017. I've known some other people, very powerful people, 2017, 2018, but they have just as much substance and awareness and understanding as some people who've been doing this for a long, long time, which to me lends to we're in a quantum environment now. But I mean, 4 years, you never had any inkling or any higher sensitivity or any direct party lines to the other side of the veil until 4 years ago.
The first part, yes, I've always had, ESP, quote unquote, or like had feelings. My mom's side of the family is very connected. My that side of the family has had experiences. But yeah, up until 4 years ago, it wasn't until I turned, 36, where I was at a restaurant. I talk about this in my book, and I sat next to a woman, and her husband came through. Like, he was giving me names and messages and things. We laughed.
Yeah.
Huge thing. But yeah, it wasn't until about 4 years ago. And then the crazy thing is, Todd, there was a whole year where no readings happened. I still didn't even know if I was supposed to practice mediumship.
So you had your first experience and then nothing happened for a year?
For a year. More than a year.
That's crazy.
Bible, I researched NDEs. I mean, I went on this whole, journey, which I talk about in the book. But yeah, and so during that time, I had to have a lot of trust and faith that this was my purpose. And I would go around, walk around, and be like, should I give that person a reading, or should I, or do I, am I supposed to do?
So the first one wasn't really a reading. That's when it happened. Then you knew you at some point were going to be given readings. What was the first reading like? How did that come about? Did somebody approach you, or did you approach them?
Well, I had gone about 4 months after my first giving of a reading, when I didn't even know that's what it was called. I went to a local medium myself because I wanted to know it was true. I was a huge skeptic about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after that, when my dad came through, I was like, okay, there's no way she can Google or, find that information. So there was a big hurdle of trust that I had to pass. And then I used that, to answer your question, I used that same medium to have 4 people that I would just give a free reading to and make sure that it was something I can do. And like I say in my book, the first one was good. The second one was really good. The third one was unbelievable, actually. Like I was getting information I couldn't believe I got. And I did one more. The fourth one was just like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to like tell the world that this is what I do.
Cool. So what about it? Now it looks like, so how long have you had this beautiful family?
So my wife and I have been married 10 years. My son is 8. My daughter's my youngest son is 3.
Okay. So they actually went through this transition with you.
My son was born the 3-year-old, and he was born in March. The sequence is January was the first reading. March 12th, I quit gambling. He was born March 25th, and then I went to see the medium for the first time in May. So this was all early 2007.
Wow. Your wife must be a heck of a lady.
She's amazing. Like I would not be able to do this work if it wasn't for her.
So I'd love to get her on sometime. I'd love to hear her side of this. Like what happened when you came home one day and say, hey, by the way, this happened to me?
She was, at first, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't really know what was going on. And a couple months later, I'll never forget it, Todd. She was in the shower and we were talking about, she knew there was some stuff going on, but I remember her saying, I wonder when you're going to have your first reading. And well, I did it a couple months ago. And she goes, tell me all about it. So she's been so supportive, so supportive.
Wow. And I think too that, something else I noticed happened with me. I know it happened with me. And that is, there were actually in my first probably 2 years, there was probably, I'd say between 12 and 15 except for one, female psychic mediums that approached me, like with messages, with confirmations. Although it was happening to me, I couldn't believe it. Right. So I think that's something that it's like you hear people will go to a Reiki practitioner. And Reiki is a doorway for a lot of people in these circles. And so sometimes, like my wife, that happened to my wife. She was getting a treatment, hands-on treatment, 1999. As soon as the lady put her hands on her, she opened up and Merlin standing before her and didn't leave her side for 3 months and gave her all this information. So there's something about that kind of initiation where you have somebody kind of walk you through it. I don't know why that is. But there's been a lot of practitioners on the show, 2,500 episodes, and they talk about their different modalities and that type of thing, even if it's straight mediumship. And I ask them, what does that look like? and basically, in general terms, they say the same thing. If I'm that person, I open my field fully, as much as I can, and then invite the client to open their field up to their highest level of comfort, and then the magic starts. Is that how it works for you? Or how would you describe how it works for you?
I think that's pretty accurate. I'm a Reiki master as well. I don't do as much Reiki now, especially with COVID. But yeah, it's, you start with a meditation and definitely protection prayers. I think it's very important to ask for God's light during the time because, in my opinion, there are spirits, energy that don't realize they're of the light and they don't act accordingly. And so you can mix with those. But I've also educated myself and read hundreds of books, and I feel that if you pray and protect yourself, you operate at a vibration where energies that are in the light of God can connect with you on a certain level where those other souls that don't realize that they are cannot. So you almost become impervious to that energy. So a lot of mediums will meditate. You'll see like positivity because we have to keep ourselves at that vibration. But yeah, you get in kind of the zone. And I always tell people that, because one of the reasons I do mediumship is not only to help heal and help have faith and things like that, but I like teaching how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Medium. I like being a teaching medium, and that how you think it does. We get symbols, we get signs. I can give you a ton of examples, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to describe how it works.
Yeah. Well, and I always thought that it would be like just colossal, inarguable things that would happen, right? And the crazy thing for me was when it started for me, I was having apparitions, and I was having what I would call divine episodes, where the physical senses were involved, and so, but when I started to be in a space where there was somebody else and it started to happen, it didn't happen that way. It was more like, and actually I went to I had met a medium. She said, we spent a few days together. She goes, do you want to go to this reading with me? So we go to the reading. I said, what do I do? She said, well, don't think about anything. Just sit there and don't like mess up the phone lines here. So I stared at the hardwood floor. Anyway, long story short, this DJ from my town that I had been living in, Houston, I was in Dallas at the time, he had passed, and this was his mother, and I'd met the guy like 3 months before. And I remember when I met him, there was this huge golden light around him. But anyway, bottom line is he popped in my head. They were trying to contact him. He popped in my head and started telling me all this stuff. And I don't know, there's something about where two or more gather, right? There's something about, and I think that goes into effect as well when you're doing a session, but you would know better than I would. Do you feel like you're speaking strict when you say mediumship, is it strictly disincarnated souls or entities or energies or energy complexes that you're speaking to, communicating with, or is it aspects of the client?
First of all, I always tell people I don't know. In my opinion, God knows. But in my opinion, my belief is, so to answer the first part of your question, no. I've actually channeled souls that are in comas that are still alive. I've actually channeled the soul of someone like a father one time that was very live and healthy, but it just wasn't very communicative. I've communicated with animals, and being a former skeptic, I've gone through each of these readings. I've done well over 1,200, and they always they surprise me. And so the information, I'm an evidential medium, so I just don't say, oh, your mom's okay or your dad's okay. I get names, numbers, dates, like very, very.
Did you say what medium?
Evidential. So
evidential. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be stuff for you that it applies to you, and sometimes there's piggybacking applies to other people, but it's very specific, detailed information. But yeah, it comes through like a subtle thought, but I don't know exactly where it comes from. But I'll tell you, from the 1,200 readings I've done, the amount of validating information, the amount of increase in faith, the amount of grief support, and the amount of ability to heal and heal, especially from grief and belief in the afterlife, is overwhelming. And people, I've gotten emails, hundreds.
I believe you.
Go back to church, or I believe in God again, or the reason I get drawn to by a lot of people of souls who've passed that have parents, parents who've lost their, and it's overwhelming. It's actually quite difficult at times, but I know that what I'm doing is Holy Spirit, but it's something God wants me to do. So
I know like the first 12 months that it happened to me, I was continuously being approached by transition children, and then they would say, can you call my mother? Can you reach out to my mother? I would see the mother online. I might see a post or something, and then they would pop in. And what I noticed was, and I don't know, and I know this is just for curiosity's sake. It's not for finding the end all cure all. But to me, there was a space I was operating in that I would call, just for lack of a better word, the fourth dimension, or the astral. Let's put it that way, because it was very clear to me that where I stood, where these souls were, and what I was working with on the other side of them. Let's call that fifth dimension, or they told me at the time, healing heaven. The angels were there, other divine essences were there, but there seemed to be a space in there in the middle. And I think you kind of alluded to this a minute ago, where they were in the middle. Some of the people I knew, some I didn't know. Most of them had egoic grounds to the earth, like guilt, shame, worried about their loved ones that they left. Do you run into a lot of that? Do you run into a lot of messages, tell them I'm okay? Or, does it serve the one that's still in the physical realm? Does it serve the other, or both?
Yeah, both. It definitely does both. And I don't know. I think because I operate at a high vibration, like leading with love and forgiving and all the things I talk about in my book, I think that, and I ask and pray all the time with my spirit guides and God to connect with energies that are fully acknowledging that they're in the light, that they're
Right.
place. So yes, it's I'm okay. Don't worry about this. And so I feel like my answer is both, because remember, energy can neither be created or destroyed. So when we transition from our body to our spirit state, which is our natural state, we still exist. A fragment of our energy as that human being and that soul exists. So there are things on that energy that they know about, they're very much with us, that can affect their existence where they are. So
Yeah.
I got goosebumps. I've had spirits tell me that, please tell my daughter, and it doesn't come through like words, it's just like feelings, that I know she talks night when she's in bed. They'll show me laying their head on the pillow and show me her praying, or in the kitchen, sometimes random places where it's like, or in the car. And so what it does, it keeps their spirit alive. So keep celebrating my life. So I always have to remind myself that the energy was still a human being, is now in spirit form, still, like, not that it still matters or counts, because that makes me sound like I'm not thinking that it does, but it really, really does. So they have their soul and their energy that they need to get out. So I always tell my book that the soul is just as excited, if not more, to talk to the person who's incarnate as well.
Yeah, I remember I used to hear a lot, tell them that when they speak to me, I can hear them. And then I remember, because I would work with some people if I knew that I was supposed to, like intuitively, but I never was, I would consider a practitioner. But then they would come to in several times in the form of an animal, right? Like as I'm sitting there rapping with the person, and I'm like, I can feel him, he's here. Next thing you know, there's this, aberration of an animal encounter that, in other words, it wouldn't be normal, bird or snake or whatever. But it is interesting, the mix that you have of mediumship, the Christian foundation, okay, and then to be awakened to a point where you can accept things out of the box of the fundamentals that got you there. And it seems to me that you're continuing to expand the parameters of your horizons through the work that you're doing. Have you had any type of galactic connection, angelic connections, or any other type of divine essences?
Not that I don't know, but I can tell when a message comes through. Sometimes it comes from a higher vibration. So a woman one time sometimes they tell me to say the silliest things, but I had to talk about how beautiful her porch was, and her daughter was with her, and the woman was a little bit of a skeptic, and I said, this is coming, because we were channeling her mother, and I said, there's something coming from like a greater, like an angel. It almost feels angelic about how beautiful your porch is. I mean, and she's like, yeah, and then her mom's like, Mom, everybody in the neighborhood talks about how beautiful and the flowers, and she hangs pots and everything. So so I can tell from the feeling, like via goosebumps, get like a, oh my gosh, this is coming from something higher. And it usually is accompanied by a message of not so much the porch, but something about life purpose. But I think I have. I don't know, but I think I have, because it feels different. It feels greater. It feels like a deeper message.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that too. Because I never heard anything about galactic until about the time I met Morgan. So it'd be about 3.5, 4 years into my journey. But what I did notice is what you're talking about. Some of the things that would come through would be, I could feel they were more ancient or older or more mature. And some of the ones that I met, and I would say there would probably, like say, be 30 or 40 in that first year. Some were family members that I knew, and some were people I didn't know, but knew stuff about, whether I was working with their family member or just connecting on my own. But I was very much a skeptical person as well. And I didn't believe it until my first encounter was with my grandmother. And I kept saying, oh, well, this is possible. That's possible. And then she says, okay, smarty pants. And she's the only one that ever called me that. And I'm like, holy crap, But going back to what you said, I remember like using her as an example. I had many encounters with her over the next 2 or 3 years, and they involved, let's just say, higher dimensions. And then others that I met that were family, they didn't have that type of continence of their soul. So I get what you're saying, yeah. And I wonder if too, like, because I've had some angelic encounters, and I know again it doesn't matter because it's all come from the same place, and then I've had galactic encounters, and they feel different. They both feel good. They both feel pure love, but they feel very different.
Yep. My grandma was my first experience too in a dream. I was sleeping in my daughter's room, and I had a very vivid dream of my grandma. And I said, okay. And this is in April of that 2017. It was before I went to see the medium, but after my son was born, after quit gambling. And she goes, tell your mom I know about the teapot. And I was like, what? And it was all through thought. I'm like, what in the world could that mean? And so my mom came over the next day, and I include this in chapter 2 of my book. And she's like, sorry, Dan, I don't know. Sorry. And I'm like, and I was so deflated. Now, my mom had a stroke when she was in her 40s, so she really can't articulate. And so I'm sitting there sulking, and 2 minutes later, she's like, well, I did change my Amazon password, And I was like, okay, well, what'd you change it to, Mom? She's like, well, I changed it to teapot. You did? I said, you didn't think of that when I just said that like 5 minutes ago? Well, tell me more. And she's like, it's really funny you say that, which a lot of people do. And she's like, I was sitting at my table. Now, this is a table where her and my grandmother sat for years. And she's like, I was looking around the room to because my wife told her how she made her password. She looked around the room and found something. And she said, I looked at the stove and the fridge and everything, and I saw the teapot. And I changed my password to teapot 99, like literally just last week.
Wow.
And I was like, that. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's the confirmation. So then, Todd, being a skeptic, I go back to my room. I'm all excited. I can't believe it. Like, she just changed her, and I wouldn't know her password, right? So grandma gave me something, like, there's no way I would know her password. And my mom didn't even remember it, right? And so I went back there. I'm like, Grandma, just give me a feather. Just give me a feather, and I'll know it's real, right? So I kept asking because I was a huge skeptic. This is Easter morning in 2017. And I came out, and I go, like, Mom, can you believe that? Not kidding you, Todd, a feather floated between 20 seconds, just right in between her and I. And I was like, okay. Like, that was my journey of believing that it was actually real. It was my grandmother experience as well.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
So, and what about like, I'm interested to understand your connection to Jesus, Yeshua, Christ, whatever terms we want to use. And in fairness to you, because this is not a subject we've talked a lot about, but I just want to say that, when I was a little kid, I was Catholic. I didn't really identify with anything in the church, but I did with Jesus. And I kind of chose him as my guardian angel. And this went on for quite some time. And when I reawoke, he appeared to me in a physical apparition in the trees in my backyard. Awesome. And spoke to me. Now, I knew in that moment that this is not the Jesus from the Bible. This is a cosmic Jesus. This is something. Well, if it is, it's bigger than that. Is what I'm saying. And so I can understand that. And then in terms of like my indoctrination, he's the one that guided me through it. Here, we're gonna introduce you to this entity or this ascended or this angel, whatever, and you're going to work with him, and he would pop in from time to time. How has that been for you? Has your relationship with that consciousness of Jesus changed and evolved? Do you look at it differently than you did, say, 2016? Where does it come to?
Yeah, absolutely. When anyone asks me my religion, I tell them my religion is love. All right. Yeah. Just my religion is what I call it. It includes a lot of what Jesus taught us. I Bible, but I don't think that the teachings of Jesus are contained in that one book. I just don't. So right now I'm reading the Second Coming of Christ, the Secret Second Coming of Christ. I'm actually reading also at the same time the Universal Christ. So I look at Jesus or Yeshua as a big brother, someone who is here to support everyone. And at the end of Matthew 28, he says he will always be here. He never even left. He'll always be here for all of us. And so I think we can all benefit from looking at him like a big brother, as this energy of someone who incarnated here. And, in John 14:6, it says that I am the way, everyone can get to the Father through me. I believe that's his teachings. And I believe that his teachings are the way. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that, just my opinion. But I always, everyone has a right to their own beliefs. But yeah, it has changed, because I don't just think it's the soul of Yeshua can just constraint in a book and just the Bible. And I think there's a lot of good teachings, and I'm big on the Gospels, especially Matthew and John, because history were the only ones that really actually met him. And 13 of the 27 books in the New Testament were written by Paul, who really never met Jesus in physical form. So I believe that he's available to us all, and those books are important because Paul channeled a lot of good things from the spirit of him. So I think my experience and relationship and understanding of Jesus changed when I looked outside the Bible. Now I read the Bible every day. I'm a big Bible guy, but I think there's so much more. And I look for other books that God leads me to help develop that relationship. Like right now, again, I'm reading the Secret Second Coming, where Jesus, the soul, actually channeled 100 years ago to help understand scripture and things that he was trying to teach, and the fact that it's all about love and nothing else. So you can misinterpret scripture all you want, but are you coming from a place of love, and are you serving God, and are you helping others? And it's those type of things. So I believe the last thing, and I'll stop. I believe when they mention in the Bible Christ, it's not Jesus, it's the consciousness that he obtained. And even John 14:12, Corinthians 11:1, you can name it. We're all do the works that he did and more. I mean, when he said in John 14:12, I'm leaving to go with my Father, that leaves us to get to that type of consciousness. And what is that? Peace, compassion, forgiveness, love. And that's what I teach. And that's what I walk the walk with that. So that relationship has grown over the years.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I've thought about that consciousness many, many times. And I think to myself, I wonder how that works. So he had a life here. And in that lifetime, his illumination, and this would work for anyone, but I'm just saying, how did that happen? Why is he so well known? Given all the things that have worked against such type of illumination, right? It's either going to be kind of bastardized, monopolized, or commercialized, or used for other purposes. Yet there always seems to be this thread of truth in a consciousness like that, or other divine essences that have walked the earth. But I always wondered, okay, so if his consciousness was, let's just say X in size the day he transitioned, was that consciousness increased by the connection that people had with that consciousness, such as I had in my own life, or maybe you had in your own life? And it's just a point of curiosity, but in terms of like your connection to the consciousness of Yeshua, of Jesus, have you had any other faces of the universe step in the door and give you a peek and say, "Hey, I'm here too," or "I'm part of the team," or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I have my spirit guides, each one me, and I talk about this in my book, over the years in funny, crazy ways. But I've only actually connected with Jesus that I know of one time. And it was in a meditation about 3 years ago. And I just felt this presence, and I was like, who are you? And it's a longer story, but I didn't even know this was a quote in the Bible back then. This is how my 3-year Bible study has increased so much. He said to me, "You are the light of the world." And I didn't know what that meant at the time. And so I had to look it up, and that's what he talk about himself. But it's not just me. We all are, and we're all to obtain that light. So, but other than that, like, connection with him, that specific one time, I really haven't had, other than just, like, you probably understand this. Hopefully, I don't even know if you do. Kind of made up. It just, to me, I explain it to people, it just feels like I'm making stuff up. But when you get validations outside the meditation, or else, that's when it gets confirmed. Like with my grandmother. I felt like when I saw her with the teapot, I was just making it up. But that one time when I looked up, you are the light of the world.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all supposed to obtain that consciousness.
No, I get you. I totally get what you're saying. And I think this is a really good point, too. One of the reasons I like doing the show is because what people have gone through, because we take the linear off of it, take the linear off of it, take the levels of superiority, inferiority, and all that programming out of it. What may have happened to one person is happening now to another. So it's very helpful. And I think you said something that really, really is important. And that is you feel like you're making it up. Like I can relate to that right up to 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a fire ceremony out in the back and I'm just following whatever that is, intuition, guidance, whatever you want to call it. And I'm seeing things and I'm feeling things. And most of it was elemental, nature beings and animal plant kingdom and the wind and the earth. But if I looked at it the next day as I was talking about it, I'm like, I feel like I'm making it up. But that's how it's always been. That's how it's always been. And I think the fact that you can voice that and still stand in confidence and still follow the direction of your soul is that's what we're all doing. That's what got us all here. So there's no sense in stopping now.
Yeah.
But you got an interesting, very interesting mix too. So you as a medium, you sit down with someone, you open up the lines, you're like the switchboard, right? And you pull in what moths are attracted to that light as by virtue of the container that you and the client have, right? Which is mostly emphasized on them. Do you ever utilize that connectivity to reach for any energies or entities or essences specifically?
No, not at all, actually. And well, yes, but not intentionally. A lot of times I'll have a person coming through and I ask them, who do you want to connect with? Or no, I don't say you. I said, have you ever been to a medium before? And I always tell people, just answer me yes or no, because I don't want information. I want me to give you the information. But I'll say, have you ever been to a medium before? They say yes or no. Do you want to connect with someone specific? Yes or no. And have they come through before? If it is a yes. So it's like a sequence of questions. And then as we go on, or if I know something about them, I think last week, it was last week, I had a reading for a mom and her two sons, and she lost her son. And we wanted him to come through so bad, strongly and more, but there was a message for their friend and a message for their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't so I fall into that trap too, but I've learned as I've grown to not ask for someone specific. And and at the end of every reading, not only do I protect myself and ask God for permission and the Holy Spirit for the energy to do this, I pray for the highest good, just kind of like you talked about in the beginning, about the highest good, everyone concerned. Whatever that is. I don't ask for specific people, but I do fall in the trap of wanting to bring a child for their parent. Sometimes I do know that that's the case.
Yeah.
I cover in the beginning what I know already, so it's on the table because I am evidential. But no, I've actually, real quick, I've done a reading. I did a reading one time. I'll never forget it, for a woman about a year ago. And she came in, I asked her those questions. She wanted to connect to her grandma. So her grandma comes through with 2 messages and then it goes blank. I get nothing. And so we sit there for 10 minutes. I'm trying to, because it's thoughts. I'm like, think I'm coming up with stuff. She can't battle anything. I was like, okay, let me use the bathroom. Let me go outside and come back in. So I said a little prayer. I'm like, because always during this time, I'm still like, do I have this gift? Is it real? Even a year ago, I'd still question it. So I sat back down and I said, I just feel like we need to talk. And all of a sudden, all this stuff just starts spewing out of my mouth. I don't even remember what I said. The Spirit gave her a book to read, which I never heard of, which she ended up reading and wrote me after and said it was exactly what she needed. And so grandma came through with 2 messages, and then it was an hour long of just, how is this? How is this? It was an eating issue and something with her friends from school and, things. It was just so whatever comes through in a reading, I don't ask for anyone or anything specifically. I only ask for what's their highest good. Yeah. And I've had a range of things. It would blow your mind.
Yeah, no, I believe you, and I don't know why. Like in my case, that first year, because a lot of times I don't remember this stuff until I start talking to somebody. But there was a lot of I would call mediumship,
Mhm.
um, and almost like I was getting my teeth, you know, just getting my feet wet, but then it hit a point where it's kind of all, pretty much kind of went away. We come back at times, uh, but I remember the transition, and this is kind of where I was going with you. I remember it was happening, and then I lay down on the couch one night and I said, "Well, if this is happening and I can do these things," I said, "What about Jesus?" Like that was the one connection that if I had the opportunity, oh, you ever see that meme on Facebook? It says, if you could sit down on this bench and talk to anyone in the history of the world, who would it be?
Mm.
It was kind of like that. And as soon as I said that, boom, he's there, right? And then this whole new phase started. And I guess that's where I was going with you. Do you ever connect um, with intention for yourself, or is it only for others?
I mean, before I answer, I want to make sure. Well, the only thing I do for myself is I really enjoy helping others. So
Yeah.
that's the thing isn't for me. So I would say if I said no, I'd be lying because I really like feel good when I help other people. So that's the only thing I get for myself. Other than
Right.
that, it's all for them. I'm just a channel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Look, I'm a medium. I'm in the middle. There's a spirit world. It's the person getting the reading. And do I benefit from it? Yeah, I do because I like helping people. And once in a while, B, my dad pops in or somebody, but not how you'd think. I don't just see him there floating. He'll
Mhm.
pick back on a message. They'll give me a flash of like him or when he was a certain age or like
Yeah.
a concert we went to. So other than feeling good about helping others and having some family members pop in unintentionally, once in a while, it's 100% for the person
Yeah.
because decent, Todd. I've done 1,200 readings, and I've said this before, but the amount of healing and faith and
Yeah.
growth after a reading is there's nothing like it. And you
Uh,
know what? It's tiring. I don't charge a lot on purpose because I feel like I'm not supposed to, and that's okay. And it takes a lot of effort and time, but it's worth it because I know I'm doing what God, or I firmly believe that I'm doing what God wants me to do, and the results from my readings are just they're so satisfying because people get so healed and faith is increased and all the things I talked about.
yeah, I'm with you. And I'll tell you another thing. It worked for me in that first year. Was I was encountering a lot of different energies that were on the other side of the veil. Now, again, I'm gonna say it's that space that I was referring to as the astral, like the space that would be between the metaphoric 3D and the metaphoric 5D, or heaven and earth. Let's put it that way. And I specifically remember being given, and this must have been from the guidance of my team, ego training. And so, ego training was being able to discern, because, in other words, when I went into that realm, I could, and it shocked me at first, I could tell where there was ego involved. Like I could get a stream from something that's on the other side of the veil, and everything's pure, and then in a moment's notice, all of a sudden it gets tainted by some egoic or self-serving, agenda-oriented type of thing, and I go, oh. So I remember this specifically telling me you're learning to discern. You don't just discern in the physical world. But what was interesting for me, and I wonder if this has happened with you, I had these occurrences merge in the physical. Like, for instance, I spent a weekend with somebody who this was obviously a very spiritually important contractual time period, but I watched them as I worked with them and did healing on them morph from like an angelic, blonde, blue eyed, very fair skinned to a splotchy, bile complected looking face with a very deep voice. They morph back and forth. And I thought that was kind of strange, obviously. But it seemed to me to be a physical representation of the energetic field, and that's kind of how I looked at it. Although I had my guides with me the whole time, saying, "Can you please get in here and help me? Because I'm scared." I mean, I took like a crucifix off the wall and I had it up against her face like that because I didn't know what to do. But have you had any experiences like that? Have you had to learn to discern between what is true and what's not true when you can't see, touch, feel it? You know?
I have not had anything like that. My messages are so subtle
Yeah.
that it's unbelievable. And I don't mean this in not in egoic way, but I consciously pray, meditate, treat others with respect. I have no grudges.
Yeah.
I eat overall properly. I've been a little bad during the holidays, but like I make sure that I take care of my physical body and my thoughts and my mind in a way that, and of course, consciously protect and meditate and pray during readings and for the highest good and read the Bible and everything I do. So that I don't have, and I pray to my guides, pray to God, I shine the light all over the time, and I act accordingly at a high vibration so that I don't really have to worry about that. That's what I think. And all I've never, that I know of, had a bad, benevolent, any type of spirit that was like not out for the best interest of the person. There are sometimes messages that come through once in a great while that are hard to say, but it's energy coming through in a good way to help the person. I think because I operate at such a high vibration that I'm impervious to that. I'm not ignorant of the fact that
No. I relate to you totally. I relate to you totally.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that time God was a lot of time during that year to make sure I did the right way. I didn't just not jump into something not knowing.
No, I got you.
No, I haven't had any experiences like that. I haven't even.
I can't say that I had. I've had 3 times where I got a little scared. And one time was Archangel Michael because he wanted to come in and tell me something and he wanted to really emphasize it. And because of the way he came in, it scared me because it was so powerful. The other time was a spirit guide. And the third time was, I would say, it was a big, large, I would say, unhappy entity. And it was like the last time, it was like a moment where it was a seminal moment where I was given a choice. Is this going to have power over you? Are you afraid? Are you going to give your power away? So again, it was part of that indoctrination and incorporating what we really are, But I was just curious because I know everybody's experiences are a little bit different. I love the way that you basically, because I feel the same way. I know you asked for protection and permission, but I'm in the same thought that you are about myself, which is I am my own protection. Like I am impervious. I am what I am. And I know I've had this conversation many times with what you might call dark entities, and I don't want to get hung up on that word. And that is, what are you going to do? Kill me because I'm coming right back. This has been going on for years. This exchange of energy, this elevation of what consciousness is, what we are, what I am, what you are, has to come from that friction of these polarities, which I think is why this earth is such a special place. So how do people find you? I mean, obviously, you've got quite a few people that follow you because I can tell by the number of people that we have on the show that you brought some of these people up, or quite a few of them. How do people find you? What do you offer online? You mentioned Reiki as well. Is it strictly mediumship? Can you kind of walk us through what you do?
Yeah, so my website's danieljohnmedium.com. This is my book, Why Are We Here? I wrote a book about life and what I discovered. And you can book a session, whether it be a one-on-one or a group reading, through my website. I did just open up I'm booked until September, but I did just open up some dates in March because last month I lost my full-time job. And I don't think it was a mistake. I think, I was so far booked out. Just the last 2 weeks, I've done 20 readings where with my full-time job, I would not have been able to do that. So I think that was God's way to get me into mediumship a little bit more full-time. So yeah, my website's Daniel John Medium. My Facebook page, YouTube, and Instagram is all Daniel John Medium.
Right.
I go live on Monday nights and give away free readings to people. And then the book is available on Amazon. And it's also available on my website as well.
Very cool. So, and give us a kind of a general summary of the book. Like what are we going to find if we read this book, experience this book?
Yeah. The first couple of chapters are in 2017 about the reading with the woman at the restaurant and how I had to quit gambling and how I visited a medium and the story with the teapot. Those are all the first couple stories. Chapter 3 through like 13 is all about what I've learned. There's common themes through mediumship, and it's not just the mediumship, but also the books I've read. I've read over a couple hundred books on NDEs and stuff like that. And I don't claim to know. I never claim to know. But some people, through a lot of different avenues, can have information that's helpful to other people. So I talk about meditation, religion and mediumship, reincarnation, angels, spirit guides, pre-life planning, forgiveness, because spirit talks about how important forgiveness is. I talk about love, and I talk about death. And then in chapter 14, I talk about finding your purpose. I think we all come here for a reason. In this book, I have an exercise that was channeled about how to find your purpose. And I also have an exercise in chapter 11 that was also channeled on how to forgive. And then in 15, I go through what is a psychic. I don't claim myself to be psychic because I think there's a misinterpretation of what the definition means. So I go through the definition. In 16, chapter 16, I talk about mediumship and how it works. So I actually talk about diet because I feel like what we put in our body has a significant effect on our vibration.
Except for the Christmas holidays.
What's that?
I said except for the Christmas holidays, right?
Yeah, oh gosh, I know. And then is about my father. My father passed in 2014, and we've had just as close, if not more closer relationship with these past. And then testimonials. There's 7 testimonials, 4 of which can be watched on YouTube, that are written and read on an Audible version for this as well on Amazon. There are 7 people who had a reading with me, and they wrote their experience down. So I included them to kind of give people an understanding.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and that's part of what I was asking you earlier. Like you just mentioned about your father. I know I'm not the only other one, but I can look at 2, 3, 4 relatives that I knew that, like you said, I know better now. I know better after they transitioned than before. Not that I wasn't close to them before, but you just kind of mentioned the same thing. When I said, do you ever use your ability to connect for personal reasons? I didn't mean that in a selfish way whatsoever. I guess if we look at it pre-awakening, this would be prayer, or this would be an appeal to the universe or to God or goddess, source, whatever you want to call it. Do you ever connect for Daniel?
Not purposely.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, not purposely. Can I share a really quick story with you? Just really quick.
Yeah, we got all the time in the world.
I was in pharmaceutical medical sales for 16 years. And in 2018, I was with a new company, and I wanted to be the #1 rep in the company. It was my goal. It was #1. I'm going to put it out there. And at the national sales meeting, and I knew going in I was going to be #1. I worked my butt off. I prayed about it. I was literally 100+ reps, and I was #1. So we're sitting there at the national sales meeting, February of last year, which was 2019. And I'm sitting there, in front of, there's 150 people, and the CFO of our company comes up on stage. Now, we're a small division of this big company. And the CFO of the company comes out to talk to our group. So we're like, this is so cool. So my dad has always visited me. Sorry, my mom's trying to call my.
You're good.
Did you get me?
Yeah, you're good. Now you're going. Now you're back.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
Can you see me?
About. So, yes. Oh, you've lost. Oh man, that sucks. Hang on, let me send him a note. Oh, maybe he's coming back. Let's see. Hang on. All right. Okay. Let's see here if he comes back. Very cool dude. We have to get him back on. Here he is. Here we go. Oops.
Here I am talking about my dad. My mom calls my phone.
See, you can't make this shift up, man. And when you said that a minute ago, that there was that noise on the side of the room.
She called me on the phone and then my landline.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we think it's coincidence. It's not.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Well, here's the funny thing. I mean, I don't mean to talk too much, but when I left the company for my other company, to go to the job where I finished #1, it was my mom's phone call after I just got off the phone with HR and declined the job. And she said, you better call them back. And I think you should take this job. And I ended up taking the job and becoming the #1 rep. So that was her just calling again. So maybe it's a good time.
Right.
My dad,
there's no coincidences.
has always visited me as a fruit fly. He's not the actual fruit fly, but he'll come around at the most crazy times, show me a fruit fly. It's just his way to let me know he's with me.
Yeah.
So long story short, I'm sitting there in the group, CFO's on the stage, and a fruit fly just flies right in between me. And this is February in Florida. I don't know if there's any fruit around. And he just flies right in front of me, between me and the CFO. And I just get this feeling of, I'm proud of you, son. Just like that. And I get emotional. I start tearing up. And I look at my clock on my phone, and it's 9:41. My dad was born in September of 41. And 41 is always, which I am now, has been the age where I knew my life was going to change in a crazy way. I thought I was going to die. I still don't know what it is. I just turned 41 a couple months ago. So 41 has always been my number. So fruit fly, dad, feeling. September 41 was his birthday. And I'm sitting here like, I just called again. Someone else is calling me. All right. So long story short, the CFO gets up on stage. Now I'm in a state of like, I'm crying because my dad just like approached me on the #1 rep. I'm so proud of you, son. And the guy gets up on stage. He goes, "Where's Daniel John?" My regular name's different. It's my pen name, Dan. And I'm just sitting there, 150 people. I raise my hand. He goes, "That guy up in Syracuse, that's where the rubber meets the road." And he called me out in front of the whole organization about how I was the #1 rep. And it was right 5 seconds after my dad visited me with the fruit fly, the 941. And that is just an example, a small example of how the communication of my dad works. I don't see him sitting there and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. So yeah, I guess not in the selfish way, but yeah, when
that's what I was getting at. I figured
do it proactively, or say, hey, come to me now. It's like I'm always open for things that are good and are going to feel good and help me and help others. I do talk about it in the book too.
Yeah, I've had it too. I remember it hasn't happened as much in the last 3 or 4 years, but I don't talk to people that much. In those first years I did, and a couple of things would happen. One is that the person that I was talking to, sometimes messaging, would write or say something to me that wasn't them. It was someone else coming through them. So it was very much like what I'd experienced working with other people. So I knew there was some type of mediumship going on. And then I remember one time talking to this one, and I believe she actually was a bit psychic, as we all are, I guess. And she actually spoke to me in Spanish with my aunt's accent. And I'm like, I know this shit's real. I didn't even think twice about it. And going back to what you said earlier, too, about it feels like you're making it up. I've never heard anybody say that. But to me, that's as close as you can get, in my opinion. The way this stuff comes in, it feels like you're actually imagining a story or creating a story or writing a story in the moment, but it's factual. It's intuitive. It is creative. It does come from the imagination or whatever we call that, but it's very real. Yeah.
So two things. Just my opinion on the Trinity is God is the Father and the culmination of all. The Son is the piece of the whole, which is each one of us individually as a whole. And the Holy Spirit is the connection between both. And so the Holy Spirit connects and communicates through us from the Father all the time. And I'll give you one small example. I was doing a reading for a woman. I see a caramello bar. It's the bar with the caramel.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, "Do you like them? Did you just buy one?" We didn't even know who was coming through. I just see a flash of a caramel bar in my mind. It feels like made up. And so we finally realized throughout the reading that it's her ex-husband who passed away. And so 20 minutes later, we're doing the reading, and I get prompted by the Holy Spirit to say, "Did this man have any other children?" And she said, "Yes, he had a daughter." And I said, "What was her name?" "Her name is Carmela." I never knew that. But her husband on the other side was trying to get to me through pictures and signs and feelings up to talk. And then after that, he gave 3 messages to his daughter from the other side through pictures. So, a skeptic can be like, well, that's not the same, right? But that's how it works. I can give you 100 more, but that is just an example of how I just thought of a Carmelo bar in my mind. It wasn't me. I haven't thought about them in years. There it is. And so I relay it to her, and then she says she didn't connect it. So a lot of times, as you mentioned earlier, it takes a little bit of help or a little bit of openness to the person that's getting the reading to help the information come through. So it is a team effort, and I call it like a game of charades. Is the best way to put
it. I'm getting so many memories coming back as you're telling these stories. I can't imagine though doing. I mean, like last month we did 80 plus shows on Soulology, and that's very depleting. I can imagine doing 20 mediumship sessions because you are, you'd have so many. You'd have you'd be like a sieve. You'd have so many holes, in you. So you have to kind of reconstruct, recuperate after each one of them, or do you have like a routine for that, or what?
My wife, like you mentioned earlier, my wife is just, I would not be able to do this if it wasn't for her. I mean, we have 3 little kids that I do get to spend a lot. But there's certain days where I have 3 readings, sometimes 4. I try to schedule them out. This is a new thing to me because, again, I was a medical sales rep for 16 years. But, yeah, I have to definitely rest. I have to drink a lot of water. I have to protect myself. I have to be conscious of my energy. I have to be very careful about being impatient or, running myself thin. So it's definitely a balance thing for sure. But prayer.
I can't imagine. I mean, I come from the same type of background. I wasn't in pharmaceuticals, but I was in the arena, right? In the competitive arena. Mm-hmm. And I did the same thing. Best of the best of the best of the best, right? But I can't even imagine coming out of a highly competitive, I'm sure you had a lot of alpha male running through you. I mean, you're very, energetic. And you've gone from what is a high paying industry, especially if you're number 1 in the country. You're going from this certain template, if you will, high level template. So I'm sure the prestige, your family, friends, I mean, you got everything. And you've now left your job and you're a medium. Yeah. How difficult, has there been any difficulty with family and friends and contemporaries saying, what the F is wrong with you?
Well, the leaving the company was not my choice. I was let go from the company. So I think that because I wasn't going to leave. I think it was a divine alignment. But it's only been a month. But everyone's been understanding. I'm still looking for another job, but also praying at the same time. But my plate is so full with readings.
You're booked into September.
Yeah. And the other thing is, too, I did the math. I make 30%. If I'm doing 3 readings a day, 4 days a week, which is 12 readings, which is still a lot. Yeah. I make 50% of what I made from the year prior, being a pharmaceutical sales rep. So it's definitely a change. And we're, my wife and I are thinking about making some adjustments with the home and stuff like that too, because I'm not bringing in that paycheck anymore. So it's definitely a change. And, and then even though it's COVID, what do you say when you, oh, hey, what do you do? Oh, I used to say I'm a medical device or pharmaceutical sales rep. It's like, cool. I have a company car and everything. Now it's like, well, I'm a medium, and so there's certain people that don't, and I don't have any shame in that, but there's certain people don't understand it, don't believe it. There's the whole religious aspect of it.
That's what I was getting at. You really, it's only been a month. You really haven't had enough time in it. But, one of the things that quite a few people have kind of forecasted, and it's picked up recently. I've seen some memes and some posts on it. And that is that 2021 is really going to serve those like yourself. Really going to serve people who have done the work on themselves, who have downloaded a certain skill, ability, modality, or whatever. Or even someone like me who's wanting to expand awareness of people like you, and build a wider platform. That these enterprises and initiatives and individuals in their individual creations and in their collaborative creations with others is really being supported by what we might call Holy Spirit. I call it Soulology. You can call it life force. You can call it whatever you want to, but that which makes us all, that God substance, that something shifted and it's going to work with us. I don't think you'll be going back to work for anybody.
Really?
I really don't. No, I think now here's another thing I'll say too, because you're really kind of fresh into this. And what I mean by that is a lot of the people, including myself, that I've observed over the years, they've had this foot in both worlds kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like they've had to step in, let's call it 3D, and then and with this higher awareness, this 5D at the same time and function. You got three kids, you got a family, you got a wife, you've got some traditional things that are basically attachments to the 3D. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I can see where in what I've observed in other people, there's a lot of evolution, there's a lot of change and growth, sometimes very rapidly, as they start to make those decisions, you know, which is what I found so interesting about what you said earlier about the whole making it up as I'm making it up as I go, because that's the same feeling that never leaves. And as you sit there and try to go, do I go back into the matrix or the 3D templates and go to work and walk both worlds? The big things start to happen.
Yeah, I think there's a craving and a need for light workers, regardless of who they are. By the way, 20 and 21 is 41. I've already done that math, and I'm 41 this year, so who knows where. But you know what I do, Todd? When I pray about it, I do have a couple jobs I've been looking at that I would like to do that can balance. See, my heart is still in this. This is where my heart. So, but with three kids and the benefits you get with a job, I've been looking at a few jobs where I could manage both.
Yeah.
And that's good. But at the same time, I pray, I kind of say, like, you know, whatever you think is good, best for me, this is what I would like to do. If it's going to work out for you and I can do the work you want me to do, you know, place me where I need to be. So I'm very, you know, open to whatever comes up. But I will tell you, I've had some signs where I just need to rest, do some readings. Don't worry about it. I got 6 weeks, at least, severance from the company, which is nice. So that for a month and a half or so. And, you know, and then I started a nonprofit, which I just finished the website. Well, that finished the website. I just updated the website today, which we're going to launch in spring. Probably be a lot of my focus come next year.
I think so. I think I would have had 11, 12, 13, 14. So I would have had 4 years since I reawoke and I stepped back into my old field. And I actually stepped into a situation that was the largest company in the country, in the headquarters town, Houston, Texas. I was running the #1 territory with our biggest clients, you know, because that's where they had most of their silk, you know, silk stocking, oil company, oil money clients, that type of thing. Anyway, my point is I lasted about 4 months. But the interesting thing is when I jumped into it, it actually created, I guess, the chaos within myself to launch in a greater way SOULOGY. So it was kind of weird how that worked.
Yeah.
But
so I believe it's a combination of free will and destiny. And the fact that you went there may have given you a platform or done something to help you get
which is why I said that, because like I can see that, like what you're talking about, like okay, I could do this, I could work both of them. There's something about you taking an action that it may not be what we think is the successful you know, product of the equation, but it's something that's good or better than we could have ever imagined for ourselves if we just get out of the way, right?
Free will and destiny. As long as you come from a place of love and you always come from the heart, it'll always work out.
Yeah.
I like one of the reasons, I won't get too into this too much, but when I left my other company, the mediumship I think had a lot to do with it. And I firmly believe that this is what God wants me to do. I've asked over and over, are you sure this is what you want me to do? And it's very clear, and he makes it clear over and over. The universe, source, Allah, God, I call it the same thing over and over. So when that was one of the main reasons why I was removed from the job, I know that it's divine because I pray every day to make sure that this is what I'm supposed to be doing and ask for guidance all the time. And all I ask is this my highest good? Is this what's going to be beneficial to the world and to you and for me in this lifetime? And I get signs that, You know, again, like, it's not like you. I don't see things. I don't, you know, but I get these like synchronicities that really line up to help me make the right decisions. And it's not.
Well, I mean, I've seen. I just want to make that clear. I've seen things, but most of what I've gotten has been that you're making it up as you go feeling. You know, like, and even the physical things that happen to me, I'd be like, did I just see that? You know, and
Right.
and and until, especially with Morgan, you know, when we connected and we started to be, it happened both when we were half a world apart, but once we were in the physical together, there's something incredible. Like that phrase in the Bible where two or more gather takes on a whole new meaning in 2020, 2021. Like it really, really does. Like even I've watched it happen so many times on this show. And this particular show is another great example because there's something about the timing, the serendipity, right? The grace and the timing, the synchronicity and the serendipity that when these like frequencies connect, right? There's a whole vortex created, and everyone that's a part of it that steps into it and engages it on the live, on the replay, because it's all the same time, real time. There's some incredible, what I would call third energy, or Holy Spirit. You can call, golden child energy. People are using that term. This is the age of the Trinity. And there's something about this third energy, which to the human perception has been invisible, that is now really taken hold. It's magic, it's alchemic. And I think it's going to alter this world dramatically even in this first year, 2021.
Mm-hmm. Hope
How
so.
do you stay grounded, or does it even affect you when you start to consider, I hate to even mention it, but I'm just curious to see what your answer is. When you start to consider and mention COVID-19, mass quarantines, uh, possible fraudulent elections, two-party system that's one, 1%, Illuminati, all these boogeymen out there in this distorted, beautiful, divine orchestration that we've all created together and we experience together. How do you contend with all that stuff, or does it even enter your field?
I don't know if this is going to be a popular answer, but I believe it's all an illusion, and I believe it's all part of a bigger plan, and I believe that it already happened, and I believe we're just experiencing it now. I don't think there's one mistake in the world. I think we have free will, but the free will falls within destiny.
Yeah.
And I don't follow Robert Schwartz at all, but I read both of his books, and he says your soul's gift and your soul's plan. And the best way he describes it, not that he's a know-it-all, but he's very enlightened, is that we live in a world almost like Mario Brothers, right? You can only go to certain tubes, you can only jump so high, you can only run so fast. But within the game, you can go backwards, you can go forward, you can get the mushroom, you can not get the mushroom. But within the parameters of our game, or what we call our life, everything that's happening is part of a happening that either already happened or it's part of something that's already planned. So I don't get this. I'm insensitive to that, for lack of a better word.
I'm with you 100%.
And coming from a sensitive, I'm very sensitive, but when something happens in the world, I'm like, okay, that happened. How are we going to make the best of it? And that is what I think I'm here to teach the world, is like, okay, here's this. It's not, this should have been this way, or we could have done this. How can I lead the best way with love? And so so God presented us with COVID, right? How are we going to be the best people we can? Can we post positive videos? Can we do positivity things? Can we share? Can we have compassion for others? And that is what I think is the challenge and what we need to do in this world. So those things really just don't bother me. And even when it hits home, like a job loss or a passing of a loved one, okay, this has happened. It's part of a happening. I'm a big Eckhart Tolle person, and it's happening now. So what is the best way that I can do mentally, or think mentally, to be in my best vibration and to help the world and serve my purpose in the best way I can? Yeah. And sometimes, to quote Forrest Gump, shit happens. And how are we?
I love a preacher who drops an S bomb. I'm just kidding. No, I agree with you 100%. And I think this is a really important subject, because as we go into 2021, a lot of people have talked about a great divide, They've said everything from there's going to be two physical Earths, and half the people are going to go here and half going to go there. It's a more of a multi-dimensional uh, type of scenario. Some people are going to be going through their lives with a big black cloud over their head. Some people are going to be walking through their lives in a bubble like Forrest Gump. But the thing that you're talking about in terms of how you relate to everything, which I can very much identify with, and that kind of you almost feel like you're insensitive, right? Like people can talk about child trafficking, sex trafficking, uh, sacrificial rituals, satanic rituals, and all these things, right? And yet there's something, like you said there's something bigger than all of this. There's something that we can't know the infrastructure of the game. We can't know all the whys and everything because it would take everything. It would take the charge out. It would take the victory out. It would take the expansion out. And I think this is, what I'm getting at is I think this is something that's really already started, where it's almost like you have to really take to heart and walk the talk. You mentioned that earlier, uh, and allow people their own journey without judgment as you pursue your own destiny and the enhancement that an aligned free will can create in the field of potential with your destiny.
If Matthew 7:1, you can quote any verse, talking about non-judgment. In my opinion, God has his hand in the world, and everything that happens in the world, everything, even a movement of a sand across the beach, is doing so because it's in divine order. Everything is in divine order, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even things you mentioned, which are hard to talk about, are in divine order. There is free will, but within the free will only works within destiny. So when you look at the teachings of Jesus through a lot of the Gospels, a lack of judgment on others, I think, is a teaching because of what I firmly believe to be the fact that there's divine order. And we can get caught up in the shoulda, woulda, couldas. And in fact, a lot of spirit comes through. Like a child who passes will say, this was the plan. This was supposed to happen. I'm not be there right now. This was, but even if they passed in a car accident or a random disease or just an aneurysm, like what if they would have went to the doctor? They tell me to tell a person there's no what ifs. There's no, in fact, but there's no thing. So yeah, it's kind of an sensitivity is the best way to put it, but it's because I trust in God and understand and firmly believe that everything is in divine order. Everything, every little thing.
Yeah, including losing your job, including being on the streets for 2 years, including whatever.
And I've struggled. Another reason you brought that up, my organization, the nonprofit I started, is called Heaven for the Homeless, and it's an organization to help people that don't have proper, adequate housing. And so that's something that came to me, kind of that you mentioned, that there's people that just need us to help. And I feel like I'm inspired. I already did it. This is me just experiencing and living, going through the and having the organization. So yeah, I feel like it already happened. We're just reliving it in a way to help.
It's almost like I had this thing last night too, and I remember I was working here in the studio till like 7 this morning. And so there was a lot of downloads coming in. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I remember seeing the word ego. Like, how you said it, they show you pictures. So there was like ego, God. And I remember I kept going, wait a minute. Are you telling me that the same letters are used in both words? Now my human pops in and goes, that's not true, because this one's, you know what I mean? This one's geo, right? And they were trying to show me that, and the message to me, but as the individual goes, so goes the collective. Any attachment I have to the story, whether it be anti-vax or pro-vax, or be I believe in COVID or I don't believe in COVID, or 9/11 was an inside job or it wasn't an inside job, or you got to do this or I got to be right. Anything that attached to the story was of that part that they were showing me called ego, which is not a bad word. And that the other part of it is what's coming into folk, or what's coming in to run the show now. And that is stories like yours, where people are stepping away from the ego attachment of need and, well, you got to do this and we got to do that and you're supposed to do this and I'm supposed to be that. And they're actually following this crazy guidance that they're getting, regardless of what kind of pushback they get from contemporaries or family, right? I mean, it's just a bunch of crazy people now, isn't it?
I actually watched a movie with my kids last night called Soul. It's a new.
I want to watch that tonight.
New Disney, and it speaks to that, about your purpose and listening to what you think your purpose is and helping others. It's a really cool movie.
Yeah. Morgan mentioned to me a couple of nights ago. I think I had come across it the day before that, and then anyway, we realized it was animated. But then I saw somebody wrote something about it last night. And a friend of mine wrote about it this morning. He said he was crying. So it must be good. Yeah. Plus the word. Can't go wrong with a word.
I didn't even realize I started watching it. I started getting into it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the type of stuff I love watching.
Right on. Hey, we'll have to get together again sometime if you're up for it.
Yeah, anytime, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, very cool. So you're in upstate New York?
Yeah, I mean, between Syracuse and Rochester.
Okay. Yeah. I spent some time up there in my old life. First time I ever saw a whiteout, I was in Rochester. I was supposed to fly out. I was in some Holiday Inn with all these, I think it was like an airplane museum or something. Anyway, I saw they had floor to ceiling windows in the bar. I was sitting in the bar fixing to go to the airport, and all of a sudden it was pure white.
Yep.
And I said, what the hell? And they said, oh, it's a whiteout. You ain't going nowhere tonight. So, yeah, beautiful area, though. Syracuse, Rochester, even like Niagara Falls, Buffalo. It's all, I mean, I know it's cold, but it's beautiful country.
I enjoy it up here. We'll see where whatever takes us next. You know, I have a studio in downtown, and my in-laws own some restaurants here. So I think we're foundationally here, but we'll see. You know,
what kind of studio do you have?
It's an old bakery we remodeled, and so I have a Reiki area. I have my mediumship. I also have a meditation area. It's kind of our building. We bought it, so cool. You know, it's right in downtown Geneva. It's really nice.
Oh, you're in Geneva.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And in the summer of 2021, I'm going to be doing a small tour in the Northeast, just doing readings and stuff like that. And we'll see where it takes us after that.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll reach out. I'll see you in 2021, and all blessings to you and your beautiful family. And keep on trucking, man. And thank you for showing up.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you.